Muses of Mythology is a spoiler-heavy podcast.
That's an understatement.
We're going to discuss not just the events of this book, but the Rhineverse as a whole, and really anything that we feel is relevant. You can find full spoiler warnings in the show notes. Yeah, I told Robert when I walked in your room, and I was like, it's so hot, and you're like, my fever is 103, but I'm freezing. And I'm like, you're dying. I kept like, why do I keep coming in here? I'm going to get sick.
I had that last year. It was not fun.
Welcome to Muses of Mythology, a podcast where we explore how ancient myths become part of modern pop culture through the lens of Rick Riordan's Magnus Chase and the gods of Asgard. This is Story 99, Loki. I'm your co-host and podcasting muse, Darian Smart. Joining me is my co-host and brother, DJ.
Hey, why was Loki in front of Thor? I'm DJ the Muse, by the way. Or Loki after Thor. Like it feels like Loki's more important than Thor. Yeah. And I don't know if the general population would feel that way.
We're building.
Okay.
Thor, then Loki.
But I
Loki,
feel like
Odin.
most people might feel it goes Loki, Thor, Odin.
Well, we could
but
argue
that's because of a good hero villain bias, sure. But
I also feel like maybe most people would think it goes Thor then Loki because of a good Marvel character played by Tom Hiddleston bias.
I genuinely would disagree.
In the garden,
myself would disagree.
We're going
that
to the
it
garden.
would go out like if we're going on MCU.
It's a new month, so it's time for our monthly Patreon donation. Every month, we donate $1 for every patron we have over on Patreon to some organization working to create a net good in the world. This month, in response to the devastating wildfires in the LA community, we're following the lead of our guest for this episode, Robert Gamer, and donating to the LA Regional Food Bank. The LA Regional Food Bank works year-round to mobilize resources to fight hunger in their community. Their efforts are needed now more than ever, as countless individuals have lost everything. We currently have 11 patrons over on Patreon, so we'll be donating some additional money out of pocket to make that an even $20 donation. If you'd like to learn more about the LA Regional Food Bank, you can check the link below in our show notes. Our hearts go out to all of the individuals in Southern California who are going through such a terrible time. If any of our listeners happen to be among these numbers, know that we are thinking of you. If there's anything we can do to help you in this time, please don't hesitate to reach out. Our community may be small, but if we can signal boost any way to help support you, we would love to do so. Thank you so much to our patrons for helping make these donations possible. And now, back to the show.
Welcome back to the episode, everybody. Darren, tell us about Loki.
Well, that's out of order. I can't. Yeah, let me just do the whole episode, and then at the end we'll be like, "Oh God, has Robert from the damn meme page been here the whole time?"
Hey, Robert, what's good?
So hey, I'm here to talk about Loki, and it feels like this has been an episode waiting forever because Loki and time, and Loki has nothing to do with time, but it's been a long time since I was like, oh, can I be on the Loki episode, please?
It has been a long time since you asked to be on the Loki episode, and that was like literally last year at the start, and then we had to reshuffle the entire way we were approaching doing the Norse myths, and
so you've been waiting a whole year. We appreciate your
year has
patience.
Passed by so crazy. Are you guys ending the Norse mythology section story 100 on Odin?
Yeah, and that's because we divided up Frey and Freyr and the Vanir. Like, they were all supposed to be one episode, and then that got broken up. And so then it turned into... Episode 100 was supposed to be some sort of, like, self-indulgent bash. Now it's about Odin, and we're having special guests from Standby Line joining us.
Yep.
Hey.
Which is also very good.
Hey.
And then we're going on hiatus for a chunk of time. But let's not think about that now. We're here with Robert. Why did you want to be here to talk about Loki?
Loki, listen, I'm a silly little guy, you know I am. I want to talk about the silly little guy, the where it all begins, the mythology of the silly little guy.
I just
who
I'm
also
just
did
thinking
a lot
about
of other
Balder
bad
being
stuff.
dead and then being like, yeah, Loki, a silly little guy. Robert, the last time you were on the pod was on the Back to the Underworld episode, September 2023.
Oh God, really?
I mean, I mean, to be fair, we could count the episode 77 View from Mount Olympus episode where you gave us a nice little visit, as a lot of
Yeah.
folks did, which would be
yeah.
still December 2023. So it's still been well over a year since listeners have heard your voice on this feed. So thank you for coming back. We missed you.
I missed you.
You
too.
are, in fact, a silly little guy.
Yeah.
Friend, brother,
Friend.
listeners, lend me your ears. As I say, I have no idea what this episode is going to be, gang. Like, I don't know, man. I feel like I'm
We've
not
already
done doing
talked about
the research.
everything
And
that Loki has, right?
it's just, the thing about Loki,
Loki in mythology kind of just is a part of every story in some kind of way.
Yeah,
because
it's like
he's like the trickster god person kind of person dude who's like, hey, what if I play a silly little prank, hee hee ha ha, and now people are mad and that starts a fight that like gives Thor his hammer, or hey, what if I do this silly hee hee ha ha prank and then Baldur dies, or hey, what if I do this this little hee hee ha ha prank and God, what's another Loki story?
But that's the thing, right? Is that it seems like Loki is specifically never the main character. He's always the supporting character or the villain of somebody else's story. It's never, it just, something about him specifically isn't main, isn't solo. He's always a highlight of somebody else's.
Yeah. Here's the thing. Loki's weird. I think we're going to start that. And I think this is factual. And I have scholarly evidence to support this. I'm going to open it with a quote.
First, before we do that, Darian, hey, Robert, what do you remember about Loki from Magnus Chase?
I've lost control of the episode.
God, what do I remember from Loki? He spends essentially the whole first book, not even the whole first, like 2 times, I think, in the first book, invading Magnus's dreams, being like, hey, you're sucking at being a hero, Lamau. And then in the second book, he keeps doing that, but also inevitably gets freed due to the shenanigans. I think his uncle frees him, right? Magnus's uncle frees him.
Yes.
Because Magnus's uncle is like, hey, if I free you, you're going to like bring my family back. And then Loki's like,
this fella.
And then Loki is like, yeah, so about that, death, I think like what, fall into an open chasm is what happens to Uncle Randolph?
Yeah. Yep. Loki cast fall into an open chasm. It was super effective.
I feel bad. I truly, Randolph, I love him to bits. I feel bad for that guy.
He's a tragic character.
That is a fella that I have pity for.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Truly and unironically, I have pity for him. I really wish that he got better, but he just didn't. He got manipulated by Loki and
and then Loki in Ship of the Dead, his entire plan is to sail his ship so he can like start the party that's known as Ragnarok. And the only reason he doesn't is because Magnus Chase rap battles with him. That's where the fighting is, right? Rap battle. And kicks his ass so hard he shrinks Loki and puts him into a jar.
There you go.
To be clear, Magnus loves and compliments his friends so hard that it shrinks Loki and he puts him in a walnut.
A walnut, yes, there we go. Which one could argue is still insulting to Loki because he's like, I have all these people I love and who love me. What do you have? Nothing.
Which is literally like the actual thing is like, look, you're still alone. Even your wife is gone. Even she just straight up
your wife
did the
who
meme
stood next
fading
to you
out
for like 1,000 years to 2 to 3 to 4,000 years. Like who knows how long your wife has stood next to you? She's gone, bro.
She just left.
She doesn't care about you anymore.
It's so brutal.
You're alone.
You
Imagine. It couldn't be me, dog. Check this out. Samira, she's god tier. Fucking half-born. This dude fought water horses. I don't know how. I don't know, dude. What crazy.
It's always so funny to me that out of all that, his thing for Alex is like, and then when Alex and I kissed, it was the best thing ever.
It was outstanding, dog. This fucking best kiss ever. Fireworks. in my mind, dog. It was crazy. The fact that we kissed, I couldn't believe it. It was amazing. I loved it. Every single second. Do you have anything like that? Do you? What about you?
Not even your wife. She's gone.
She's gone. I bet even the first time you kissed your wife, there were no fireworks. I bet it was a political marriage, you fucker.
Oh my God.
And this is exactly, I'm reading along. That's exactly what Magnus is wild.
How did Rick Riordan get this past the censors? And then I think the story just ends with him tied back up to the rock with the poison dripping onto him, right?
Yep.
Okay. Congratulations, Loki. You had your moment, you threw it. I mean, I guess you'll get your moment again in the future because Ragnarok will always happen. You can prolong Ragnarok, but it'll eventually happen.
Honestly.
Yeah. I mean, that's the first thing we learn about Loki is when we get into the first poem of the Poetic Edda and in the Volspa, and we have the Sibyl talking about what's the jam, what she sees. Loki's mention is being freed in Ragnarok and everything falling to pieces at that point. Can I give my quote now?
100%. I was about to ask you.
Okay. All right. So I think this quote I found was going to really encompass the vibe of this episode. And it is from scholar Gabrielle Touvel-Petry. In 1964, they stated, "More ink has been spilled on Loki than on any other figure in Norse myth. This, in itself, is enough to show how little scholars agree and how far we are from understanding him."
Okay.
So, let's start with the etymology of Loki's name. Because when you look up Loki, you're going to find a lot of places that say, yes, his name means knot, or tangle, or perhaps cobweb. And I'm here to tell you, maybe, perhaps, mayhaps, in fact, there is no scholarly agreement on the interpretation of what Loki's name is supposed to mean or that. And there are also times in the Eddas where Loki is referred to as Loptir, which comes from the Norse word that means air. So if you thought, hey, I'll figure out like what the Old Norse folks thought about Loki through his name. No, you won't. Not here.
Good luck, Charlie.
Now you thought, okay, parents. Let's look at the parents. Look at the origin. I bet that's going to tell us a little bit about like what they thought about Loki. So Loki is the son of the Jotun Farbati and the goddess Laufey. And here's a fun fact. You'd be like, wait, but isn't Loki Laufey's son? I thought that was like Thor Odin's son. Yeah. Here's a fun weird thing about Loki. He is like the only dude in Norse mythology who is referred to with the reference to his mother. It's not usually the matrial line that we're getting that son or daughter of element for, or I guess sometimes it's daughter of, but so that's interesting.
Neat.
Now, Laufey, goddess.
He shares that with Blitzen.
Because Blitzen is Freya's son.
Specifically, he calls out the dark elves or dwarves choose the maternal line instead of the paternal line.
Well, yeah. In this case, it might be because the maternal line is carrying a little bit more weight.
True.
Now, Laufey, goddess of what? Well, maybe trees. Her name appears to be a feminized version of the word for leaf. So perhaps she's a tree goddess. But she isn't actually mentioned outside of being referenced as being Loki's mom. That's the only time we ever get a name for her. And in fact, the only place where she's stated to be the goddess or a goddess is in like supplementary material for the Prose Edda. There's like it's called Nathurler. Sure. And it's essentially a subsection where there's like a list of names and how they can be used in poetry. Because again, Snorri did all of this because he hated French poetry. Very important.
I don't blame
Never
him.
forget. So, there's one list that is like basically it goes, one must qualify these names for women. And it's followed by a list of several goddesses, including Sif, Frigg, Indun, and then Laufey is at the end. So that's the only place where she's referenced or her specific identity.
Okay.
Scholar John Lindau has noted that while it's probable that Laufey was a goddess and a member of the Aesir specifically, it hasn't been proven. Much like Loki's name meaning tangle. So let's talk about Loki's dad, Farbati, who his name, we actually do have like a pretty like solid consensus. Oh, that's the word I wanted to use earlier. Consensus on the name. It has been translated into danger striker, anger striker, or sudden striker.
Oh, golly. The road's getting bumpy. Consensus.
Consensus?
Consensus.
I don't know what that means. Anyway.
But also, this dude is only ever mentioned in the fact that he's Loki's dad. He doesn't have a story. He doesn't have any details. We never learn anything about him. It's just when Loki's parents are mentioned, that's when these two figures show up. They are not active and present in any other way. So, hope you didn't think you were going to learn anything about Loki from that.
I mean, I guess that's one way to have.
I wasn't expecting to learn Loki's parentage from this episode, honestly, because I feel like I would have had because Loki is such a prominent figure in almost anything. I feel like aside from Laufeyson, I would have seen something else, right? Because I mean, we've seen that Thor is the son of Odin. And her name, Frigg. I was about to say Sif, but I'm like, that's Thor's wife, bro.
That's Thor's wife, but there was a connection.
Yeah. But it's like, yeah, we know that Thor is the son of Odin and Frigg, but I haven't seen Loki being the son of like anybody specifically in anything more than, like the MCU. But even the MCU is like, oh, he's not actually Odin's son, but he might not actually be Odin's son.
No, and also they took a big old swing on Laufey. She's like, yeah, Laufey's son.
Laufey,
Must be
an ice giant from Niflheim, right, fellas? And he hates that.
Wrong.
He hates that.
Not Niflheim, isn't it?
Jotunheim.
Jotunheim. There we go.
They call it Jotunheim in fucking.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yep,
that's
it's
goofy.
Jotunheim.
Because that is
We've talked,
like Niflheim.
DJ, we talked about this
we did
extensively.
in the Heim episode, whatever that was called.
Episode.
It should have been called the Heim. Anyway,
I think Adventures in Giant Land. Hey, I'm not actually sure if Thor's mom is Frigg. I'm doing a real quick scan. Not seeing that as being explicit. His mom might be a giant.
his mom might be a giant.
This is not
but
Thor's
his
episode.
Dad
Thor-
is certainly Odin.
His dad is certainly Odin. Okay, so I want to start with Snorri. Because at least Snorri tries to give us some concrete stuff to work with.
Love Snorri. Big fan of Snorri. I may shit on him
think-
sometimes, but I'm a big fan of Snorri. I think he's a wonderful fella. And I'd love to have a beer with the guy. I'd love to hear his
You'd
thoughts.
love to have an Icelandic
on-
beer with a guy?
No, I'd love to have a Miller Lite with this fella. A nice classic American beer with this guy. Why do I got to be the one who reaches out with my beer or with his beer, right? I'll reach out with my beer. You know what I'm saying?
So chapter 33 of the Gylfaginning is Loki. Also counted among the Aesir is one whom some call slander of the gods, the source of deceit, and the disgrace of all gods and men. Named Loki or Lopt, he is the son of the giant Fartbarti. His mother is named Laufey or Nal. Oh, also sometimes it's Nal, but I had
Wait,
nothing on that.
I'm sorry. So his shit is source of deceit, god of lies, or whatever the fuck you just said. And we still think that everything he said in Loki's
Quarrel
is true. We still think everything he fucking said there is true.
I know.
What do you mean? The motherfucker's known as Lord of Deceit. What the fuck?
Wild. A broken clock is right twice a day.
It's not a broken clock. The motherfucker is missing his hands. Okay?
So Snorri does go out of the way to let us know that Loki is smoking hot. Loki is pleasing, even beautiful to look at, but his nature is evil and he is undependable. More than others, he has the kind of wisdom known as cunning and is treacherous in all matters. He constantly places the gods in difficulties and often solves their problems with guile. As we talked about in the Thor episode, there is a lot of myth involving Loki that we have already covered because these stories, there's literally only 2 books, and so they kind of overlap. But I wanted to, real quick, just talk about the stories about Loki that Snorri includes in the Gylfaginning in order.
Okay.
The first one is the story of the birth of Sleipnir, the 8-legged horse. We have discussed that.
Love
how they wanted to get a wall built around Asgard. And so Loki was in charge of negotiations and he promised this stranger the sun, the moon, and Freya, but gave him an impossible deadline that this dude was definitely going to meet. And all the gods were like, fix this. So Loki turns himself into a mare, distracting the stallion, delaying the time of the guy's ability. He just couldn't make up for lost time when it took to track down a stallion. And then Loki gives birth to this 8-legged horse that Odin's like, this is a great horse. Sleipnir is noted as being best of all horses.
Sleipnir is a great fucking horse.
That 8 fucking... how much horsepower is that? Like at least
way,
double, right?
At least
way
double
more
the
than
horsepower.
one.
Way more than one.
At least more 1 times 1. That's the 1. No. 1 plus 1.
Yes. 4 plus 4.
Yes.
8
It's
divided by
good.
4 is 2.
You don't
2.
know how well more legs may multiply horsepower. You don't know if it's additive or multiplicative.
That's true.
I mean,
this
there
is true.
is so much math to think
Right?
about. It's not just...
Where
It could be
even?
32.
It could be...
Could be 32.
It could be
Dear listener.
128. You don't
You know what? No. Owen, how much horsepower does Sleipnir have?
Because I know horses don't even exceed 1 horsepower, which is weird.
So rude.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay, so the next story is when Loki is just chilling with Thor and they're having adventures in Giant Land. And this is the one where he goes to Utgard Loki's palace. And then they're like, well, if you're going to stay the night, you got to beat one of our contests. And Loki's like, I'm great at eating. And they're like, okay, here's our buddy Loki.
But
And he
Loki
loses.
was fire.
It's fire. Loses because this
Nobody
other guy
could
was
beat
just
fire 'cause
actually
fire
fire.
consumes everything.
And while
So-
this is happening, Thor's lifting a cat.
Yep.
He tried his
Yep.
best. He could only
tried
get
one
paw off
paw.
the ground.
Best. Mhm.
Except
You know,
it wasn't a cat.
I think if Thor tried again, he could make sure that cat never gets up again.
Thor just needs like that training
And then he'll
montage
take
from The
9 steps.
Incredibles.
The training, yes, with just lifting the freight trains.
Yeah, he needs that training montage, and then he'll probably be able to lift up 2 paws.
2 paws. Okay, so we've got a Loki shenanigans story, a buddy road trip story with Thor, and then the third and final time we get a Loki specific narrative in the Gylfaginning. It's when he sets up Hod to kill Balder.
He's a great guy. What murder?
What about all the murder? What murder? Yeah. You're just like, what a heel turn. Like,
What
oh my God.
Insane. What a jackass, bro.
Yeah.
Listen,
I'm
I'm not defending, but also I'm like, you know, maybe Loki has a little bit of ADHD. He's like, here's the one thing that can hurt Balder. What don't you just want to see what happens? Like, aren't you curious? Aren't you going to set it up?
But that's pushing it onto somebody else. That's taking advantage of somebody
Okay,
else's
that's
ADHD.
It's blind.
that's
Balder's
the worst
blind brother.
He knows exactly what's going to happen when this mistletoe touches Balder. But he gives it to his blind brother, who doesn't even know what material it is.
Yeah.
Let
no idea.
alone he just wants to get on the fun, and nobody else has offered him like, hey, here's a ball of iron, throw it at your brother. Nobody else has offered him that. So Loki comes and says, hey, throw this at your brother. It's not going to hurt him. Well, it is going to hurt him.
It's
And in
gonna kill him.
fact, it's going to
and-
kill him.
And then Loki goes on so far to disguise himself as an old woman and refuse to mourn Balder so he can't come back to life.
Yeah. Literally. It's Loki's
This
a
is
jackass.
a silly little guy.
Loki's a bit of a jackass.
The Gylfaginning ends with going into Loki's participation in Ragnarok, which we've covered extensively. So I'm going to skip to the other book in the
Real quick, give it to us, Darian. Because I don't remember it.
I mean, yeah,
of course he breaks free, but who does he kill?
Oh, he and Heimdall kill each other.
Ah, yes. Wonderful. Thank you so much.
You're welcome, TJ. I want to talk about the Skaldskaparmal, which is the other book in the Prose Edda, and just kind of do a cat recap. Is that just like, here are the stories of Loki in this book. And in this one, we have Loki rescuing the goddess Indu. No. Yeah. In Idun? That one's
I think
better.
it was Idun.
Idun. And she is actually the goddess of youth. When she gets snatched by the giants, the gods start aging. They're like, what happened? Where is she?
It's like, hey, hold on a second. I shouldn't have grays. This is bullshit.
Oh, let me hold on. Where's it? I got it. I think that's literally kind of what it literally says verbatim. Indun's disappearance badly affected the Aesir, and soon they began to grow old and gray.
Hey, I'm having gray hairs. This is bullshit. Something's happening.
So they get around, they ask her out, and apparently Loki was the last one seen with her. So then they get Loki and they threaten him with torture or death. He grew frightened and said he would go into Giant Land and find Indun if Freya would lend him her falcon shape. And again, it's just, she was last seen leaving Asgard with Loki. There's no evidence that he's the reason she got kidnapped.
Except for the fact that she was, in fact, last seen with Loki. She was, in fact,
last seen with Loki, and now she's trapped in Giant Land.
That is legally enough evidence to investigate Loki.
Yeah. Oh, shit, hold on. I missed the beginning of the fucking story. Yeah, nope. Loki fucking set her up. Because some giant wanted the apple. So, no, my bad. He did set her up to get kidnapped. This is his fault.
Bastard, dude.
My bad.
Motherfucker. Yeah, there it is.
So then
Loki.
He borrows Frey's feather cloak, shapeshifts into a falcon. Don't know why he needed her feather cloak to shapeshift into a falcon when he has turned into, like, a horse and also a fish, unlike other times, but whatever. Rescues Indun, carries her back. The giant that had her is pissed. He goes and chases Loki, but Loki manages to do an aerial move, so this dude crashes into the ground. The Aesir kill this guy. That was Scotty's dad. She's pretty pissed about this. Kind of wants revenge. So they're like, hey, but what if you get to marry one of the Aesir gods, and we'll let you pick the one with the hottest feet? And that was Loki's idea.
Outstanding.
Mm-hmm.
Big fan.
Another myth we have is Loki just decided to go into Giant Land for funsies. He got busted, and the giant was like, I know you're a guy. Fucking talk. And he's like, I'm not going to talk. Oh, yes. Locked him in a chest and starved him there for 3 months. And the next time the giant Gerard opened the chest, Loki was way more talkative.
Oh, shit. I forgot about you, bud. What's up?
What's good? You gonna talk now? Apparently this giant just wants to fight Thor when Thor doesn't have his hammer or his belt of incredible strength. So Loki sets this up so Thor goes into Giant Land without those two things. But fortunately, Thor stays with the giantess Gerd, who is way chill and gives him a heads up about what's going on and loans him a different belt of strength and also some iron gloves and also her staff. And then Thor goes and fights that giant guy and wins. Yes, Robert?
No, I just like that story because I swear the giant's like, hey, you were supposed to come here without your equipment. He's like, I didn't come here with my equipment. I came here with someone else's equipment. Let's go. Let's fight.
Hell yeah. Fun loopholes. Gotta love him.
On the last story in this collection is the one where Loki cuts off all of Sif's hair as a prank, and then Thor threatens to murder him. So he gets all of the gods' favorite toys made by a group of dwarfs.
Good for him.
Good for him.
Bro got Gungnir and Mjolnir made in
And
this like one swift move. Another item too, don't get me wrong, I understand that.
Yeah.
But those are the two that everybody knows.
Like, it very much is Loki causes a problem. Loki is made to fix the problem. It's not just Snorri giving us this. Let's swing over to the Poetic Edda
All right.
and talk a little bit about the Lay of Regine. Regine. And in this one, the gods Odin. Okay, it's Odin, Hanir, and Loki are traveling together. And Loki sees an otter and throws a rock at it and kills it. And they're like, awesome! What a great looking otter. Let's skin it and turn it into a bag. And so they do. And then they continue on their way to visit this king. And they're like, hey, man, look at this really great otter bag we made. And the king is like, holy shit, that's my son. Because
That's my
Excuse me?
My
Because-
boy.
Excuse me, sir? You're gonna have to explain that one to me.
Yeah, the one of the sons could shapeshift into an otter and he would go fishing like that.
I mean, hey, you need a hobby.
Yeah.
I
And
guess
so-
the otter son had like a white spot on it somewhere
Not
specific.
Otter's son.
Otter son.
Isn't that the name of the fucking characters from Gumball? Gumball
No, it's
Otterson?
Watterson.
Watterson. I'm like, that sounded familiar.
Now once the family sees this, then the narrative is being like in the prose section of this poem is like being told by like the family. Then we seized them and made them ransom their lives by filling the otter skin bag with gold and also covering the outside with red gold. And so they sent Loki to go get the gold because it's kind of Loki's fault.
The moral of that story is do not skin otters in the Scandinavian region.
Don't skin
Yes.
otters. Otters are good little guys.
No, they're
also
wonderful
weird
little
little
fellas.
dudes. They hold
they
hands when they
have-
sleep so they don't float away.
They do, in fact, have wonderful waterproof skin.
So Loki goes to the goddess Ran and gets her net so he can go back to the falls and catch that dwarf we've talked about a couple of times who has like a shit ton of gold. So he just catches this guy and is like, give me all your gold and that nice ring you've got on your hand.
The ring causes a lot of problems.
The ring causes a lot of problems. So and here's like Loki scrolls back
Bilbo
and this
Baggins gets a hands of it at some point. It's it's a lot.
Frodo
of,
gets
it's
his whole
issues.
it's a problem.
Samwise carries Frodo. I cried.
It's so good.
I cried.
So Loki tells when they give him all the gold, they cover it, and then they produce the ring. The gold is now given to you, said Loki, and you have great payment for my head. For your son, no good fortune is ordained. It will be the death of both of you. Himdar said, gifts you gave, you did not give love gifts. You did not give them wholeheartedly. I would have taken your lives from you if I had known this mischief before. Loki said, it is worse still, or so I think, the enduring strife of kinsmen. The prince is not yet born for who I believe this hatefulness is intended. So basically he's like, hey, this treasure and this ring is gonna cause you no end of problems. Your entire line. And they don't believe him. They don't care. They take the gold. And then that ends up in just a whole other series of stories about the shit that happens to this family because of this cursed ass ring.
Nice.
I don't know if they would put it that way, DJ, but
No,
okay.
they really wouldn't. Fafnir. I love Fafnir. I love that story.
Mm-hmm.
It's wonderful. But it also fucking sucks, dude.
It does.
Imagine.
Do y'all want to talk about a story that is super fun and
Absolutely.
kind of great? This exists in the poem Thrym's Poem. And this is the one where Thor dresses in drag to get his hammer back.
Hell yeah.
Valkyrie Bride.
He wakes up, Thor, realizes his hammer is gone. And these were the very first words he spoke. Listen, Loki, to what I am saying, what no one knows, nowhere on earth nor in heaven. The god has been robbed of his hammer. So, like, Loki is the first person Thor tells that this has happened. And after he wakes up pissed,
Yeah.
so then they go to Freya and they're like, well, Thor is like, hey, can we borrow your feather shirt to see if I can find my hammer? And Freya's like, of course, we're best friends. And then Loki flies off, the feather short whistled, until he came to the outside the courts of the Aesir, and he came inside Giant Land.
Okay.
And you see, like, this is, y'all know the story. The listeners know the story. Like,
Yeah.
a giant stole Mjolnir.
Yeah.
And Loki's like, okay.
The giant will only give Mjolnir back if he marries Freya. And Freya's like, absolutely not. And
Yeah,
Thor's
they
like,
even
I'll
suggested
go
to
as
her.
Freya.
Yeah, they suggested to her. She gets so mad, the whole hall of the Aesir trembled. The great necklace of bristings fell from her. That's
Like,
how
"Hey,
fucking pissed
hey,
she was about this.
We're not going to do that.
Mhm.
And Thor's like, I'll do that.
No. Heimdall's like, hey, let's tie on Thor a bridal headdress. Let him wear the great necklace of the bristings.
So here's the thing. I think that might call for the fact that Thor's a little bit of a twink.
Well, no, because Thor literally says, the Aesir will call me perverse if I let you tie a bridal headdress on me. Like, he's like, fuck that. I'm not going to do that. I'm a macho
No,
manly man.
It's this, he feels that way. Don't get me wrong, he is. But he also, if covering the face, could pass as fucking Freya?
Okay, but Freya is also a goddess who gets half of the fallen warriors, has her own
Yes.
hall where they go, and is potentially the goddess of Valkyries herself.
And
So what
a
it
goddess
actually
of fertility. Darren, this is in our episode.
Yes.
Do not
So
forget
what
that I don't understand.
What it means is that Freya is fucking built. I don't know, because listen to what else Heimdall says. He's like, let keys jangle by his side and women's clothing fall over his knees, and on his breasts display jewels, and we'll put a pointed
Yeah.
headdress properly. Freya is buff. Thor is buff. So Thor's like, I'm not gonna do that. And Loki Laufey's son says, be quiet, Thor. Don't speak those words. The giants will be settling in Asgard unless you get your hammer back. So Loki convinces Thor, this is what they gotta do. They dress up Thor. They put on Freya's pretty necklace. And then Loki is like, okay, well, I'll go with you to be your maid. We two shall drive to Giant Land. So Loki just full-on shapeshifts himself into being the bridesmaid for the this whole thing.
Shout out to Loki, bro. What a homie.
And Loki sells the con. Because, right, okay, clearly, like, they can, like, the giant Thrym is super jazzed when he's like, hell yeah, they're bringing me Freya. But he's a little bit like, I don't know, because Thor goes ahead and drinks 3 caskets of mead. And he's like,
Thor's a hungry
hey,
fella.
I've never seen any brides with a broader bite, nor any girl drink so much mead. The very shrew maid sat before him. She found an answer to the giant's speech. Freya ate nothing for 8 nights, so madly eager she was to come to Giant Land. And then he bent under the headdress. He was keen to kiss her. Instead, he sprang right back along the hall. Why are Freya's eyes so terrifying? It seems to me fire is burning with them. The very shrew maid sat before him. She found an answer to the giant's speech. Freya did not sleep for 8 nights, so madly eager was she to come to Giant Land. I don't know where this voice is coming from, but I've committed to it.
It's definitely, you got to commit to it. Yeah.
And then when they bring out Mjolnir as the bride's gift and they put it on Freya's lap, Thor kills everybody.
I've never seen a lady kill everyone like that before.
Freya hasn't killed anyone for 8 days, so we knew she to come to Giant Land.
Yeah, that's effectively the whole excuse they give throughout the entire thing.
What
She's-
big eyes you have, grandmother.
She sat in a
haven't seen you
room
for
for 8 days
8 days.
eating salty.
So Odin's son got the hammer back. Is the prose line that ends the poem.
Hell yeah.
That one's so fun. That's just such a fun, wacky nonsense. Like, what?
Good. It's
That's
hijinks,
so
bro.
funny. It's so funny. Like, why? Why is it so funny?
Because it just is.
Now, shall we talk about something that is far less funny?
Okay.
Yep.
Loki's Quarrel. This is a poem we have talked about quite a few times, as DJ talked about at the top, just having the biggest gripes with it being used as like, yeah, these are the facts of these characters. We should believe everything shitty Loki is saying about them. And I said that I was going to do a deep dive and try to figure out why this is. And, bad news, gang. I couldn't.
Nice.
But why not?
Okay, so this version of the Poetic Edda I referenced this season is translated by Caroline Larrington. And before each poem, it has an introduction from her giving some context onto the piece. Before Loki's Quarrel, there is this verse, it's not the poem, there's this passage in the introduction that notes, insofar as we can verify, the charges Loki lays against the other god and goddesses appear to have some foundation, though Loki speaks as if the gods were wayward human beings rather than divinities whose actions are attributes of their separateness and power. So all I could find was that scholars are like, listen, all of these things Loki mentions, yeah, they might not be attested anywhere else. Like, yeah, we have no other accounts where this is happening, but we have no reason to think the god of deceit and slander is lying.
It's a little weird. It's strange.
Yeah.
Why wouldn't he be lying in order to make people mad?
Yeah, but Larrington goes on a little bit and talks about how the poem might be like a really early piece. The poet could have been, believes in the divinities he burlesques. A little comedy cannot hurt the divinities whose cult is secure. Or it actually might be a lot later, in which case it may be a mockery directed by a Christian poet at the heathen divinities whose immorality contrasts with the stern morality of the new religion.
Nice.
No, not nice.
Not nice. Opposite of nice. And I did actually find that super interesting because if it is the latter, if it was a Christian poet who was specifically writing these, like, and meant everything, and that would be the reason why everything that Loki throws at them is meant to be interpreted as true, because it is meant to specifically demonstrate that all these so-called great, like, heathen deities are terrible and immoral and awful and not like my capital G God. Which would put it a lot more in line with that poem I talk about where Rick Riordan got his version of Freya from. I'm not going to yell about that tonight, but
Yeah.
imagine that I did.
Yes.
It's a little weird.
So, yeah, that's the thing. I promised I would find more, and I simply can't, because it seems like it just depends. Like, we don't know if it's supposed to be a comedy, if it's supposed to be a dunk. It really changes the nature, because if it's a Christian poet, then we can assume that, like, the Norse people, this wasn't really a foundational piece for what would have been reflective, of, like, the beliefs of the Nordic people of the time. And then all those things that Loki says, like, his really main comeback to all of the goddesses is you sleep around, and also incest is, like, his big thing. Or the gods are like, haha, you're a coward. So for the meat and potatoes of this one, I want to give an overview of what this poem actually is. We talked about it. It's the back and forth. It's the flighting. It's Loki just destroying any relationship he had with any of these other characters.
Loki burning every bridge.
Every bridge.
He is becoming an island on his own.
Starting from the prose introduction that describes, like, how the Aesir are all having, like, a big party with Gymir, like, just was made. They got to go get that cauldron, so he's going to make him a lot of mead. So everyone shows up, including Loki. And then Loki gets jealous that the Aesir are praising the excellent servants, so he kills one of them.
What an
As
asshole.
you do. Totally, totally, asshole thing to do.
And the Aesir are pretty pissed about this, so they chase him into the woods.
Okay.
And so then that's a prose introduction. And then we get into the poem, and the poem opens with Loki apparently coming back and being like, let me into the party. But the actual poetic verses kind of indicate that he's gate crashing and, like, was never invited, and this is his first appearance. So there's an interesting disconnect that we're not sure why. But yeah. So he, again, insults everybody. The reason he's let into the party is, like, he makes the guy standing at the door take it up with Odin. And Bragi's like, yeah, you weren't invited. But he points out, Loki said, do you remember, Odin, when in bygone days we blended our blood together? You said you'd never imbibe beer unless it were brought to both of us. So, hey, remember when we used to be tight? And so then Odin says, get up then, Vidar, and let the wolf's father sit down and feast, lest Loki speak words of blame to us in Aegir's hall. So he makes his son Vidar get up. Loki gets to sit down, has a big old drink, and then, does just start shitting on everybody.
It's like, Odin's like, yeah, you're right. You're my homie, so, like, you're welcome at my table. And Loki's like, well, fuck you. Fuck your kids. Fuck your sister. I fucked your sister.
Yeah, basically. Okay, so it is interesting. He does not insult Odin. He just says, hey, man, are you really not going to let me in? But then he insults Bragi by saying he's a coward and a bad fighter. He insults Idun by saying she slept with a man who killed her brother. He insults Gifjan by saying that he's a coward. Gifjan... this is a goddess, so that she slept with someone, that she was loose. Then he insults Odin over here by calling him a coward and a pervert. He insults Frigg by saying that she slept around. Also, this is where he takes responsibility for Baldur's death. Because Frigg says, you know that if I had here in Aegir's hall a boy like my son Baldur, you wouldn't get away from the Aesir sons. They'd be furious fighting against you. Loki said, Frigg, you what? No, I'm kidding. Frigg, you want me to say more about my wicked deeds? For I brought it about that you will never again see Baldur ride to these halls.
Wow,
it's like,
what an asshole.
What an asshole. Freya chimes in. He accuses her of sleeping with her brother. Njord chimes in. He accuses him of being a coward and also sleeping with his sister. Tyr chimes in. He accuses him of being a coward. Freyr's a cow. This is it. This is all he does the whole time. He accuses them of being a cow. Men are cowards. Women are sluts.
The reason, I guess now that I know how he specifically called out himself killing Baldur or bringing about Baldur's death, I guess I kind of understand why scholars are saying that maybe we'll take what Loki here is saying as truth, because he then says, yeah, I killed Baldur, and we know that for a fact, yeah, he did fucking kill Baldur.
He did kill Baldur.
Right? So it's like,
Baldur.
here he's saying he did kill Baldur, and specifically, in that fashion specifically, instead of it being like he's insulting somebody and then us taking his insult as truth, he's specifically saying to Frigg, or Frigg brought up Baldur first. He's like, I'm the reason Baldur's not here.
Yeah.
I guess maybe we can start to think about that. But it's still like...
He's
it
like
still
spilling
feels
everyone's
bad.
secrets.
Yeah, but
Kind of
it's
what it
also
is.
still...
Even his own.
Even his own, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
he
it's-
tells Tyr that he's like, oh, your wife had a son by me.
But it's like, everybody, bro?
Yeah. Well, also, when he gets to Frey, he talks about how he only got the giantess Frey loves by giving away his sword. But when Muspel's sons ride over Mirkwood, you don't know then, wretch, how you'll fight. Which is true. So I guess there are certain comments that he has that are, like we know,
truthful?
legit, like,
So it's like,
hitting
maybe
him where it
if we
hurts?
understood everything about Norse mythology, maybe. So I can understand why scholars are arguing this point.
Mm-hmm.
Do I think we should take everything?
No.
Yeah.
It's hard
'cause
to
I
say, especially now. I would argue, no, we shouldn't take everything. But at the very least, what we do see, yeah, that is truthful.
He continues on. When Scotty tells him to, first and foremost, you were at the killing when you seized Thazi. From my sanctuaries and meadows, cold counsel shall always come to you. Loki said, gentler in speech you were to Laufey's son when you invited me to your bed. We must mention such things when we reckon upon our shameful deeds. And I want to mention that because that's going to come back later. But as we talked about in the Thor episode, eventually Thor arrives and just threatens to literally whack Loki's head off of his shoulders until he finally skips out. But the Aesir have had enough. This was it.
Loki hearing Thor threaten, it was like, I don't want to say anything to Thor because he will hit me. Bye.
Well, but he does. He goes back and forth with Thor like several times. What does he say to Thor? Let me find it specifically. He basically calls him a coward. He says, you were cowarding. You're not really a hero. You never had any food when you travel. You're not. Yeah, he also dunks on Thor before finally leaving.
Thor's got a 3-strike system. Respect. I respect it.
After that, Loki hid himself in the waterfall of Fragnir in the shape of a salmon. There the Aesir caught him. And I am going to swing over to Snorri, because he gives a very excellent elaboration on this next part here. So it's interesting. So the way Snorri organizes this is that this part where it's chapter 50 of the Gylfaginning, Loki is caught and the Aesir take their vengeance, is right after what has happened to Balder. And it talks about how they find him in the falls, they catch him because he was a salmon. And then Loki was now captured, and with no thought of mercy, he was taken to a cave. They, the Aesir, took 3 flat stones and, setting them on their edges, broke a hole in each of them. Then they caught Loki's sons, Vali and Nari or Narfi. The Aesir changed Vali into a wolf, and he ripped apart his brother Narfi. Next, the Aesir took his guts, and with them bound Loki to the top 3 of the stones, one under his shoulders, a second under his loins, and a third under his knees. The fetters became iron. Then Skadi took a poisonous snake and fastened it above Loki so that its poison drips on his face. But Sig, his wife, placed herself beside him so that where she holds a bowl to catch drops of venom. When the bowl is full, she leaves to pour out the poison, and at that moment, poison drops on Loki's face. He convulses so violently that the earth shakes. It is what is known as an earthquake. He will lie bound there until Ragnarok.
Nice.
So, they all got together and did this insane vengeance on Loki.
It is truly crazy. I cannot believe that they chose to bound this dude by his son's intestines. Excuse me?
By turning one son into a wolf to kill the other, and then using the dead one's guts to bind him up. And then they just turn into iron.
Crazy, nuts. I don't understand that.
No, it's a lot. It's like the Aesir are said to all do this as a group unit. The only one who is saying to have specifically contributed something of their own is Skadi, who you will recall is the one that Loki said hooked up with him. She was not fucking pleased about that accusation.
Fucking Christ.
Take these sweet, soft, gentle thoughts, motherfucker.
Mm-hmm.
Don't fuck around with Skadi. She had an amicable divorce. So
she's got Calder.
Don't try
She's got a fucking ice wolf, bro. You don't want to fuck with that.
I don't want to fuck with that. Hey, is Loki a god?
Good question.
Technically, I guess.
How would you define a god?
I would define a god in such a way that even giants count.
Really?
Yeah. It really is just a person who has a large amount of power that is also immortal but not invincible.
Robert?
That's a god.
God, how would I define a god? I don't know. I kind of like how Percy Jackson books do it, where they're you can be a god in power and strength and immortality or whatever, but as long as you are remembered, that's where your true godliness is.
Nice. So Snorri says, and you may recall when I introduced it, he notes that Loki is among the Aesir, which would suggest to us, okay, he's a god.
But that also doesn't technically mean he is an Aesir. He's just with them.
Yeah, what does this say? What's the exact verbiage? Also counted among the Aesir. Because this goes after a long, like all these chapters are where we
Okay.
got like Bragi,
So
Heimdall,
if it's
Hod,
like
Vidar.
a person who is also an Aesir.
Yes.
Is what that means. Okay.
And we know the Aesir are this class of gods. So that would suggest that, okay, Loki's a god.
an Aesir.
But here's something interesting I found. Scholar Margaret Clune-Ross talked about, in her work, she's talked about the social order of the Old Norse mythological world. And for lack of a better term, what I referred to as the marriage and mating structure of this world. And we talked about how the Norse didn't do incest. In fact, have created like other families, so you don't have siblings or aunts and nephews marrying each other, right? That's not a thing.
Right.
But something I didn't clock was actually there are pretty rigid rules as to who gets to hook up with who. The gods of the Aesir have wives of the Vanir goddesses or have children with giantesses. The Vanir can have Vanir goddesses can have husbands who are Aesir, or the gods can hook up with giantesses. But the Aesir goddesses only have partners within the Aesir. They don't pair up with giants. The fact that, saving a goddess from the lecherous advances of a giant is like a pretty big deal in quite a few of these myths would demonstrate. And the Vanir, if the goddess doesn't marry an Aesir god, you might see one of the gods paired up with a giant, like Norn is paired up with Skadi.
Mm-hmm.
Loki breaks this rule. Does anyone remember who his parents are?
Oh, crap.
Laufey, which is I guess a goddess at this point.
Mm-hmm.
And then I have no idea who his father is.
But do you remember what his father is?
A giant, obviously.
He is a giant. He is a Jotun. Scholar Stephanie von Schreiben points out that Loki is a product of, quote, a taboo liaison between a giant and a goddess. And that the children he has with the goddess Angbora are said to be even more monstrous than he is.
Yikes.
So when I said that you couldn't learn anything about Loki from his parents, that was a lie. I was lying to you. You actually can't. You can learn that this character is meant to be viewed as fundamentally troubling from the jump.
Yeah, literally.
Von Scherbing also goes so far. It has this. They wrote this great article, "The Function of Loki" in Snorri Sturluson's Edda, and I think this passage kind of brought to light something very interesting. In the excellent written sources, Loki appears neither as a functional deity, nor was there any cult surrounding the figure. Proof of the latter point is evidenced by the absence of place names that can be traced to Loki in Scandinavia. So we've talked a lot about all the places that were named after Thor, all the places that were named after Frey, places that were... Loki doesn't have a single one of those.
That's
so
crazy.
I ask, if he wasn't worshipped, was he a god?
In terms
He
of,
was.
what is it? In terms of like Norse mythology, sure. Yeah.
Sure.
Their
I don't think you
ways
need
of
to have.
counting as a god is a little different.
Yeah.
But every other god is serving as a function of some sort of element of humanity or social order that they are
Lies and
directly anchored to.
deceit are a form of humanity and social order.
That's a wild thing to say.
What do you want me to say? Yeah, I understand. People fucking lie. People deceit.
So
And
that's
it's
there.
something that people have done for thousands of years. Come on.
I mean, yes. There is no answer. To be clear, there's no answer. There's a lot of back and forth on this. Like, you could say, like, well, Snorri calls him an Aesir, so totally. It's like, well, his mom was a goddess, but was his mom a goddess? Who knows? Like, what I said earlier, there's no answer. But I found this fascinating because how many places will just be like, Loki is the god of mischief. And it's like, well, he was definitely mischievous. But was he the god of mischief? In a godly way? The same way like Hermes is kind of mischievous and also a god? Who's to say? Not me.
Well, it's like,
and not Jacob fucking Grimm.
Yeah. Did the Norse specifically refer to Thor as like the god of thunder?
I was trying to... Let's see what Snorri said about Thor.
So it's like he could just very well be a god, because that's like what the Aesir are, right?
Right.
So it's just like, well, Loki's an Aesir, and we view the Aesir as gods.
Yeah.
So they are gods. But in terms of like Norse mythology, they could just be viewed as the Aesir over gods.
Sure. You really swiped my transition to Jacob Grimm off the table there, though.
Terribly sorry about that, but tell us about Jacob Grimm. Why do you seem to not like him?
For this episode, I don't. So, this has all been building to me talking about, damn, people really don't get Loki, and have tried to guess a lot of different things that Loki could be about. Hey, real quick, either of you have any connection in your head to Loki and fire?
None whatsoever.
Nope. Doesn't feel like a thing? Mild. Yeah. I realized that I was like, wait, I have this thing in my head that Loki is connected to fire. Why do I have this thing in my head that Loki is connected to fire?
Is that in that Brothers Grimm's movie?
No.
Oh, okay.
No, it's not in the Brothers Grimm's movie. In 1950... Whoa, those were not the right numbers at all. In 1835, Jacob Grimm, yes, that one, proposed a theory that Loki was a god of fire. Why, you may ask? Where would he get this? Well, this whole episode I've actually been building to talking about the whole ass fucking side quest I had to go on to learn why Jacob Grimm proposed that Loki was the god of fire. Because you know a thing the internet loves to do? Just repeat a statement everywhere, but not link to the original source or expand upon it, so you know everyone's just copying what they read on Wikipedia.
Nice. Hell yeah.
Because
love to see it.
We've talked about Grimm a lot this season. He had a lot of theories and like mythological ideas about the Norse gods. And some of them are like really interesting. Like, this is an interesting theory. This one caught me up because I was like, why would he think that? Like, nothing in the myths have related Loki to fire. And in fact, the one time Loki is connected to fire is when he is losing a competition against fire itself. Some folks, when I was trying to dig, and they're like, oh, Jacob Grimm, connection to fire. This perhaps is because of the Snapton stone, which is a really cool hearthstone that appears to depict Loki with his mouth shut. And we don't know for sure who this is. It does show a guy with a really great mustache and like weird lines across his mouth. And maybe those are just really stylized teeth. Maybe it's Loki after that dwarf sewed his mouth shut for being a dickhead. But the thing about this stone is that it was discovered in 1950.
Less than 100 years ago.
Yeah, so I don't think Jacob Grimm knew, and it's the one. It's not like a lot of hearthstones were around that had like the same depiction on it. That's like, so I don't think it was this one. And other like sources would be like, yes, it was him drawing connections between Loki and Logi at, Utard Loki's party. And I was like, but why would he do that? That doesn't make any sense. These two figures are clearly different. What are you talking about? Why are you all just repeating the same thing? And no. So anyway, I want to thank Stephanie von Strubeen again. Strunurbeen again. Because in her article I read, she also mentions this, but actually elaborates on what he was talking about and cites the source where it comes from. So this all comes from Grimm's Douche mythology, which is just his mythological writing text, right? It'd be like Emily Wilson's, or not Emily Wilson's. Oh my God, what is her name?
It's Emily
mythology
Wilson.
lady.
Emily Wilson.
No, Emily Wilson is the translator of the Odyssey. She's not the one who I meant to reference right now.
Oh, okay.
Edith Hamilton's mythology.
There you go.
That's who I wanted. Grimm drew this conclusion because Loki's name sort of sounds like the German word Loki, which means raging flames.
Okay.
And so that's why he thought Loki was the god of fire.
So he just did bad etymology.
You love to see it, and by that I mean you don't love to see it.
And it seems like this idea connecting Loki and fire kind of really got cemented in like pop culture zeitgeist for a while because of Richard Wagner's The Ring. Not that one. The German language epic music drama, which is like a 4-part cycle of these operas, which we have talked about. In this, he has the demigod Loki put fire around the Valkyrie Brunhild. And we can probably, like, the general consensus is Wagner was probably getting stuff from Grimm while he was, like, putting his pieces together from mythology. So that's probably where Wagner got his idea. Wagner? Got his idea of Loki and fire. And then just combined Loki and then Loki into this. Now, to Grimm's credit, it's not the most wild theory about Loki from the last 200 years. Here's some more. In 1889, Sophus Bugge said that Loki was just a variant of Lucifer. But apparently this guy just really, really wanted to find a basis for Christianity and all of Norse mythology. So...
Okay. I get it.
Mm-hmm.
The god of lies is Lucifer.
Yep.
Seems like low-hanging fruit, but sure.
Getcha.
1956, Folkstrom said that Loki was just a hypostasis, essentially just like another version of, or like a flip side of the coin to Odin. Kind of like, in Christianity, the Holy Trinity of like, God, Jesus, the Holy Spirit are all separate but one. That was kind of what he was suggesting for Loki and Odin. In 1959, John de Vares said that Loki is just a typical example of a trickster figure. I don't know if typical is how I describe Loki, but okay, Jan.
Maybe they had other stories of trickster figures. So he's like, yeah, Loki.
Loki. In 1961, scholar Anna Brigga Roth said that Loki was originally a spider.
Okay.
That I didn't feel the need to dig deep onto that one. I just was like, fine. Finally, I'd like to talk about Anne Holtzmark, who in 1962 concluded that no conclusion could be made about Loki.
Yeah, because we go from trickster figure to spider.
Just going to tie what I have for this episode into a neat little bow. No one can agree on anything. We don't know anything about Loki. Here's some fun stories. What do they mean? Fuck all. You could, listen, there are so many articles. You could just go, like journal articles with scholars talking about this. Go nuts, gang. That I would recommend starting with Stephanie Van Struben's one. It's very good. I only took a couple pieces from it because if I was, she had so much going on there that I was like, I can't just recite this woman's whole piece. Go read it. But also I was like, it's just too much for this episode. I can't with this episode. But she had a lot of very interesting ways that Snorri is interpreting Loki. Because also remember how we know that Loki killed Balder, but that story comes from Snorri. So even then, maybe he wrote that story just to try to figure out what Loki was talking about. We don't have that mentioned anywhere else.
Nope.
So it's hard to say. DJ, tell us about Loki and SMITE.
Villain. It's a word used to describe those that break the rules, that take what they want
the rules,
and care
so
nothing for those hurt along the way. Loki, the trickster god, would say villainy is nothing more than a point of view. The point of view of fools too mindless to seize opportunity. Of course, with Loki now on the loose, the implications are dire. The end of times may be at hand. The final battle, Ragnarok, possibly on the horizon, for it was foretold that Loki would break free of his prison and herald the horrific final battle that would leave the gods slain, the heavens sundered, and the world in ashes. None are more eager for that time of chaos than Loki. Before his confinement, Loki's malicious mischief managed to affect every god in ways both beneficial and terrible. Yet Loki's most heinous act was in the death of the god of light, Balder. Balder's prophetic dream showcased his own death. Fearful for her son, Frigg forced all objects in the world to swear never to harm him, all save mistletoe. Cruelly amused, Loki forged a spear from the plant and provided it to Baldur's brother Halder. The gods had a new favorite game, hurling objects at Baldur and laughing as they harmlessly ricocheted. Halder threw the spear, but to everyone's horror, Baldur was impaled. Hel agreed to release Baldur from the underworld if all creatures in the world mourned the god of light. And all did, save one crone who refused. So Baldur died. When it was discovered the crone was Loki in disguise, the fierce gods bound him in entrails and hung a venomous serpent overhead. Loki's wife Sigyn collected the dripping venom in a bowl, but when she was forced to empty it, Loki was struck, causing such anguish his thrashing would shake the world. But now Loki is free and already wreaking havoc. If the prophetic Volva?
Volspa.
Well, Smite, High-Res, Titan Forge is here saying Volva.
That's a
If the
egregious
prophetic
typo.
Yeah, if the prophetic Volspa are correct, and they always are, then the end of all things has finally come.
Well, okay, Volspa is the name of the poem. So let me see because I don't remember because it's the Volspa is referring to the speaker of the poem, who is the seer.
Yeah.
Volspa, who is? Oh no, it's Volva.
Well, there you go, fellas.
It's VO with a little umlaut. LVA.
Loki has had a couple of reworks in his time. I actually would recommend you guys check out his search up Loki Smite Original before you look up Loki Smite New, and you will understand that the new Loki was in fact inspired by MCU.
Okay. Yep. I see dude in red, lots of scars on his face. Okay.
Yep.
Yep, that's an MCU inspiration right there.
That's what I'm saying.
How do you feel about that, DJ?
Oh, actually, I like Loki's newer design. I do like the practice when Hira's Titan Forge does it nowadays, where they would do like classic version of the skin. Like Nuwa has a Nuwa and Nuwa Classic, where like before they changed what the standard Nuwa skin looks like. Mm-hmm. Well, there's an old one. There's an old version of it, right? So I would like to have that skin, but I do like standard Loki more than I like old Loki.
Interesting. Okay. Do you play Loki very often?
Not anymore, because they changed what his kit does. Specifically in Smite 2, and in Smite 2, it's just not as fun.
Hey, Robert, is Loki in Marvel Rivals?
Yes, he is. And he's one of those weird pain in the asses because he's designated as a support, or I'm sorry, as strategist, as Marvel Rivals likes to say, which means he's supposed to be a healer. And like a lot of his kit is healing, but also a lot of his kit is just cloning himself. And the clones can also do damage and heal. So
yeah.
Huh.
His main shtick is his big ult is he turns into another character on either team, can use their ult, can use their moves for like a limited amount of time.
Shout out to my The Morgan fans. Am I right, fellas?
In Marvel Rivals?
No, in Smite.
Oh boy. And then also the other thing that I really like, there's two other Loki things in pop culture that I like. Well, like is a strong word for one of them. One is the whole mask and son of mask thing, because the mask, at least in the movie, is allegedly the mask of Loki.
True, that is right.
Yeah, it does. It does say that it's in. Yeah, even in the
big fan of that.
Yeah, the first movie just casually throws that out.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And then the second movie
it's
has Loki
the
show up trying to get his
inscription on
mask
the
back.
mask, I think, says "son of"
Yeah.
or "mask of Loki."
And then my second favorite, because I just finished playing God of War, was
Whoa.
Artreus.
Oh,
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
My buddy
Yeah,
Dalton
we knew
was
that.
like,
We
also,
knew that, didn't we?
I didn't know that.
Fuck.
I knew that.
Well,
Me personally, I did not know that.
Well,
I
did
could've
you?
sworn this is
I don't
something
think
we
it's
said-
come up.
I could have sworn this is something that was said on the podcast already. I'm so sorry.
Mm-mm.
Oh no, it's fine. He's not gonna play that game.
No, yeah, I've decided at this point it's just not a game I'm gonna play, and it
It's a
kind of
fun game. It's
sucks.
just a
Don't
long
get me
game.
wrong. I
hope someone who's binging the podcast one day gets to the episodes as we're starting to do Norse mythology, and Gigi's like, I'm so excited to play all the games that are about Norse mythology, God of War, and then we get into these most recent one where he's just like,
I'm
I'm
just
not
not.
gonna play God of
I'm
War,
just
y'all.
not.
I
I've
don't want to play
tried.
that game.
I've tried a couple of times and I've played it. I've felt its combat. It's not good. I don't like it.
Loki. Robert, tell us about Loki and God of War. You say he's Atreus?
Yeah, so that's like the big plot twist of God of War, because throughout part of the game, this asshole that doesn't take damage and can't feel anything keeps taunting and like hurting fucking God, what's his fucking name? Why can't I remember? The literal
Baldur.
main character.
Or Kratos.
The titular
Kratos,
God
yeah,
of War.
the
Kratos,
titular
there we
God
go.
of War.
Where it keeps bothering Kratos.
Wait.
And then at some point...
It's been said in game dialogue. This isn't fan theory. What I'm asking.
it's been said in
game dialogue that Atreus is Loki.
And the reason we get to find out is because during one of these confrontations between Kratos and Baldur, who is, as we were finding out, this asshole who can't feel anything, can't get hurt by anything, Atreus lunges at him to protect Kratos and accidentally stabs him with mistletoe.
So this is
Hey,
this is why I'm
not
saying,
my blood.
No. So this is why I'm asking that specific question I literally just asked. Is because it's like, not my blood. Granted, sure, but that's, I don't know if I would consider that to be the same as Loki giving Hodor the spear.
He is. No, he is meant to be Loki.
Yeah.
The
people
creators
in
have come out and said
Ragnarok,
this?
Yes.
people in Ragnarok call
Wonderful.
him Loki
Okay.
to his face.
Great.
He shapeshifts
Okay.
into a wolf.
Yes.
Okay.
His mother
I
is
think the
laughing.
only- I
Nothing
don't
to
really
me in
think-
Norse mythology.
I think the only person who calls
Especially
him
not in God of Ragnarok.
Atreus?
Norse mythology.
I think the only person who still calls him Atreus is probably Freya, and that's really it. Everyone else either
Kratos
calls him.
fucking Loki.
It's a long story, and everyone
calls
else
him
either calls him
boy,
Loki to
bro.
his face.
No,
And-
I have no idea.
Yeah, no, and then Kratos is like, "Boy,"
Yeah. Okay.
So yeah.
and
It's like, no,
those
this
are my
is there.
favorite
Like
Lokis.
that is in game. He is Loki.
Okay.
It's canon. That's like the big shtick.
All right. I guess it's my turn. Surprising no one. I'm going to talk about Supernatural.
Okay.
So, okay, here's the thing. I only watched 99 episodes of Supernatural.
Stan
So-
did not feel interested in the musical episode.
Yes. Well, no, because episode 99 pissed me off so much I didn't come back. So what I'm about to share, I recognize was later retconned in later seasons and actually makes it way less interesting, but whatever. So, you have a trickster figure show up in an early season and is just trickster deity causing mischief, just a generic monster. They kill it, whatever. It comes back again and they're like, that's weird. He's like weirdly powerful. What's up with that? It turns out it's the Archangel Gabriel. He's just been lying low for a while. Just took on the mantle of the trickster because things where family drama was a bit much. And then later on, when all the pagan gods get together and be like, what are we going to do about this Christian Book of Revelation shit that are going up? Gabriel rolls up and everyone's calling him Loki. Because in order to like really don the thing, he just was running around with the Norse gods and he was Loki. And then they retcon that, and later on they reveal that there actually was a Loki who was the one that was like imprisoned and bound that Gabriel freed, and then that's how he took over. And then I don't know.
Kind of cringe. Hate to
It's
see it.
season 13, and I didn't watch that. Every interesting thing that Supernatural ever did, they ultimately undid with something that's less interesting.
Wasn't it supposed to be like 5 seasons long?
Yeah. The original showrunner left after 5 seasons because that's the story he wanted to tell. Listen, I'm not mad that everyone who worked on the show got jobs for like 13 seasons. That's hard to do in television.
No,
like, I'm happy
wonderful. Good for them.
for them.
But also, your story ran, bro.
Yeah. Yeah, this all came back and retconned it in season 13, the last one.
I would give the same criticisms to How I Met Your Mother if like you met the mother in season 5, but it ran on for 4 more seasons. Don't get me wrong. Those last 4 seasons are wonderful. I love seasons 6 through 9. I think they're great. But also, if I met the mother in season 5, like your shit ran, bro.
Yeah, I don't think. Moving on from that, I don't think that comparison works, D. But I understand what you're going for.
You get it.
Okay, so now I'm going to talk about Loki for Marvel. That's what I actually wanted to talk about. That's what we all know.
Of course.
Listen, you all know. I'm not going to tell you about Loki from the Marvel Cinematic Universe. You all know. Also, I haven't watched season 2 of Loki, so I can't.
I haven't gotten around to it. I feel bad.
But I'll tell you about my favorite Loki in the comics. And all I'm going to say is if you want to meet my favorite Loki in the comics, Loki, Agent of Asgard. It was like a 15-issue run. It's really fun. It does really cool stuff. This is where Goddess of Stories Loki comes from, who's my favorite version of Loki. It's super good. And the premise of this one is like Loki is like trying to like be the hero and like work for Asgard and doing the things that only Loki can do for Asgard, right? It's like if you have the secret agent spy who's got like a license to kill and maybe they got to do bad things. He ends up becoming best friends with this human gal who can tell when people are lying to her. Her name is Verity. So of course they become best friends. So yeah, it's super fun. The art's really lovely. It's really cool. There's a moment where Loki is able to wield Mjolnir because of big crossover bullshit. And it's really sad. It's so sad. It actually demonstrates that this truly heroic version of Loki would like suck. It's great. Now, I do recognize that there's a bit of heavy lore. So if you start Agent of Asgard, you may be a little bit confused. So then you want to go back and you're going to want to read the 2013 run of Young Avengers written by Kieran Gillen. And that's where we meet Kid Loki, who, well, we don't meet Kid Loki there. Kid Loki actually showed up in a previous run of Journey into Mystery. And that's how we get Loki, who is truly Kid Loki, because the Loki in Young Avengers actually isn't the original Kid Loki. It's actually the original Loki who has taken over Kid Loki's body by threatening to unleash the powers of the Nightmare Demon. But as obviously, it's actually not really that Loki who set this up, because that Loki is truly gone. But if you want to know how that Loki died, you need to go into before Journey into Mystery, into the original like Ragnarok run of the Thor comics. Because much like mythological Loki, there's not one easy fucking way for me to explain Goddess of Stories Loki to you.
Outstanding. Gotta love it. That's also just comics for you fellas.
That is also just non-indie comics for you fellas.
Yeah, I was about to specify. I was like, Invincible's not like that.
No, Invincible's an isolated universe. It doesn't exist.
It's got like side stories that are important to the main story, sure, but like you could read the main story without worrying about the side stories. I'll tell you that much.
Robert, where can people find you on the internet?
Hey, so you can find me on the internet. Let's see, what do I do on the internet? I make a podcast with our friend Charlie. It's called The Bits. It is a Steven Universe rewatch and analysis podcast. Uploads every Friday. Darian and DJ hold the record for the longest episode, which was
the drunkest episode.
And the drunkest episode.
Darren did get drunk that episode. It was funny.
Unintentionally so, but it's a very fun episode.
Didn't really think of how much that box was.
And now we're plowing through season 2, where Darian will be a guest again at some point. I think you called like 2 episodes a season.
Yeah, I want The Answer and Keystone Motel. I just want to come on for all of the Sapphire Garnet lore, or Sapphire Ruby lore.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
I also do this thing called TheDamMemePage, which is this Instagram account that posts a bunch of memes in regards to not all, but all the Percy Jackson podcasters. There are too many.
There's a lot now.
Every
Oh, yeah.
time I look up, there's like 30 or 40 now, dude. It's crazy. Congratulations,
It's a popular sphere.
Congratulations to anyone who's doing it now. It's crazy.
Honestly.
But that is DamMemePage, Dam spelled D-A-M. It's also Threads, Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, and Blue Sky.
How is Blue Sky? Is it worth our time, or is it just going to be another blip?
It's fun so far. It's like Twitter in the old days before he who must not be named bought it.
Fair enough.
And I also have started my venture into a YouTube channel.
Yeah.
Right now, I am doing, at the time of recording, I'm releasing a weekly series called Percy Jackson 1 Year Later, where me and a guest provide commentary and go through each episode 1 year later. And then it's just going to be like, hey, was this show good or was it not? Who knows? Who cares?
just swept
I
up in the
care.
hype.
You care.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then I got a
Nice.
bunch of more ideas, but I'm committed to this 8-part series. Who told I want to know who told me it was a good idea to release a weekly
one.
series when I have ADHD.
No one did.
You know who told me? Me.
You did.
hell yeah.
Despite
Fuck it
everyone
up.
else telling you the no,
Get on
you do
some
this to
Adderall.
yourself every time.
It's been
Yeah,
wonderful
that's re-
for me.
That's where you can find me on the internet.
Robert, did you want to say anything else about Loki?
Loki good.
He's fun.
I think Loki not good, Robert. I think Loki not good.
Loki's
Loki
fun.
Loki fun.
Loki not even complicated. Loki just asshole.
He's an
Loki
asshole.
fun
He's
asshole.
fun.
He is fun.
And so it's like, it makes sense why people use him.
Robert, thank you so much for joining us. We missed having
you
you
for having
on.
me
It's always a pleasure.
And then, hey, you guys are going to see me in 3 months.
Hell yeah,
Yes.
dude. That's going to be exciting.
Yes. Oh, like physically, like you're going to be in my house. Oh my God. I was trying to figure
in
out, like,
3
what are we
months.
doing in 3 months? That Robert's going to be on the show for. We haven't even. Oh, yeah, because you'll kind of be here. Yes. Oh, it's going to be so fun. Oh, I'm so excited to have you actually here. Okay. And then, dear listeners, we will be back in your ears for the last episode of our season on Norse mythology. I think this season has not only gone the longest, but also definitely has the most episodes. I'll need to double
Feels
check.
like it, for sure.
But goodness me. We're back in your ears on Tuesday, January 28th for episode 100 to talk about Odin. And until then,
Last Tuesday of January.
last Tuesday of
Episode
January.
100.
Mhm.
God, you are racking it up.
And until then, don't be like Zeus.
Don't be like Zeus.
Do not be like Zeus.
Muses of Mythology is created and hosted by Darren and DJ Smart. It's edited by Darren Smart. The show is produced by Darren and DJ Smart, as well as
Tim O'Connor, The Crystal Conman, Nicholas Miller. Our music is Athens Festival by Martin Hain, and our cover art is by Audrey Miller. You can find her on Instagram at Bombshell Nutshell Art.
Want more Muses of Mythology? Support the show on Patreon. Just $1 gets you exclusive bonus content. Get more at patreon.com/Muses of Mythology.
You can also support the show by leaving a review at lovethepodcast.com/Muses of Mythology, or tell a friend why you love the show.
Don't forget to check out all of our episodes and episode transcripts at musesofmythology.com.
Thanks for listening.